Well, we came in contact with Prepaid Legal when me and my wife went to purchase a used vehicle. We did our due diligence. We purchased extended warranty, and we were treated very friendly. And the car dealer said, you know, if anything happens, come back, we'll try to fix it for you, and so on. And 3 days down the road, what happens is smoke comes billowing from under the hood, and we're without a car. Thank God it wasn't something very drastic, so we were able to drive back to the dealership. And when he saw us and he saw the problem, I think I'll never forget this my whole life. He just turned his back on me and just walked away. And we're standing there with a smoking car and didn't know what to do. And walking back to the car, we noticed there was a round Prepaid Legal sticker on the driver's window, and with a 1-800 number. And we called that 1-800 number. They give us a brief overview about what it was, and I bought it on the spot. Long story short, they ended up sending a letter to that used car dealership, and as a result they had to do extensive repairs, and because of the law firm's implication, I ended up paying just $700, which was the labor, and that pretty much saved me the membership for 2 years in advance in the first week of using the membership.
We had our homeowners insurance canceled on us. The agent no longer could sell the policy, and so we were just totally canceled. And we were like, okay, wait a minute, it wasn't our fault. It was this insurance agent and so forth. So we talked to the attorneys, and we had checked out some different policies and what we should do. And they were so helpful. So they gave us all the instructions on what to do. And so we did it, retained the same policy with a different insurance company. It saved us over $3,000 a year.
I was moving from the city of Long Beach to the city of Riverside, and I was trying to get a cleaning deposit back from my landlord, who of course didn't want to pay me. I was able to pick up the phone and be empowered by talking to an attorney that didn't charge me a dime, and he let me know what my rights were, consulted with me on the phone, and then made a phone call on my behalf. Now, I have no idea what the attorney said. All I know is 2 days later, I received a check for the full amount of the deposit and an apology.
I actually got audited less than a year ago for $18,000. And so most people at the age of 25 would have said, you know, I don't know what to do, but I was able to pick up the phone and contacted my tax attorney through Prepaid Legal Services. And by the time the attorney was done, I didn't owe $18,000 anymore. I only owed the IRS $5.
When my son was 16, he took a job selling shoes for a large chain company in the town where we live. And he had only been on the job about 2.5 weeks. And a kid came in that went to the same high school that my son went to and wanted to try on a particular brand of shoes that was very expensive. My son got the shoes for him in the colors and sizes that he wanted. My son ended up turning his back on this young man for about 1.5 minutes, and the kid walked out with a pair of shoes, $148 on the shoes. The place where he worked took him in the back, and they used fear and intimidation on him. Told him basically that if he did not pay for the shoes on the spot, that they would have him hauled out of the mall in handcuffs by the police. When he did pay for the shoes, they immediately fired him. Thank God I own prepaid, though, and I called the lawyer at 8 o'clock. Store didn't open until 10 o'clock, and I told the attorney what had happened. She said, this is what we need to do. She talked me through every step of the way. She offered to make the phone calls for me, and I said, it's the principle of the matter. I have one shot to bite and draw blood. You are my tooth sharpener. You give me the words. So she gave me the words. Within 2 hours, I had the shoes returned. I had my son's money returned. I had his job offered back, which I politely declined. But I also had a full investigation at the corporate headquarters of this particular company into their treatment of minor children, so that wouldn't happen to somebody else's child. Would I have hired an attorney over $148 and my son's job? Probably not. But was I glad I had that opportunity to use my power, you know, of my prepaid legal membership? Absolutely.
Recently, I had a cell phone dispute with a cell phone provider, and after calling the customer service department, which turned into the customer no service department, I realized that they weren't going to resolve this issue. They were going to simply put it on my credit report if I didn't pay the bill. One phone call to the attorney got a letter sent to their corporate office, and a phone call from the cell phone provider told me they had comped the entire bill.
I got an email asking me if I had opened a checking account and applied for a credit card in a bank in Newark, Delaware. Well, I knew I hadn't, so on the bottom there was an 800 number for me to call. I called the 800 number. Kroll answered the phone. They asked me a lot of questions. We determined I didn't do it, so with me on the phone. They called the fraud department of the bank, and when they called the fraud, they asked me a lot of questions and found out it wasn't me. They canceled the credit card. They canceled the bank account before the thief ever had time to use it. Not one thing was charged.
We called the attorney. We were refinancing our home. She told us what documents to fax over. She called us 25 minutes later, this first day we owned the membership. And it saved us $4,000 by that one phone call. She turned around and made some phone calls for us, and they adjusted our paperwork, and we're very happy because actually it's bigger than a $4,000 saving. If you take the loan and the time and the interest, it saved us a lot of money.
I got a phone call on my way down the highway that my house had caught on fire. When I got there, it was totally gone. My business, my house, everything was gone. We had a $139,000 policy on the house, on the dwelling, and which we'd been paying for a couple of years that way. They said that they were going to give us $124,000 because they deemed that's what it would cost to fix it. And it didn't seem right to me because I knew I couldn't hire somebody to build it back that way. So I called the attorney. He said, send me your paperwork, your policy, which I did. And he reviewed it. He called me back, and he says, don't take the $124,000. He says, by law in the state of New Hampshire, they have to give you the full amount. If they offer you less, and you take it, that's kind of your fault. He said, but they have to give that to you. If they don't, he said, give me a call, I'll take care of it. And I called the insurance company, told them the deal. They tried to dispute it, and I told them they'll be hearing from my lawyer. They called me back 3 hours later and said, I apologize, Mr. Bailey. You are correct. We're going to have to cut you a check for the full amount. So you can't take prepaid legal out of me now. It's just awesome.
Very recently, someone gained access to my debit card account, and they made a purchase at the United States Post Office. Now, I don't know who bought $460 some odd worth of stamps or whatever they purchased, but neither the post office nor my bank has been able to give me an accurate accounting of where that money is. But fortunately, I have a trained investigator from one of the largest risk management companies in the world at my disposal, and I've been assured that that money will be returned in a very short period of time to my bank account. Of course, I had to pay for that trained investigator $9.95.
A few years ago, the state came to me and wanted to buy some land that I had, and they offered me a price that I could refuse. And I called my provider law firm, and I said, what are my options? And they told me what my options were, and they said, you can reject the offer, and they will sue you for your land. So I said, you mean if I reject this offer, they'll sue me, and a jury of my peers will decide if this is a fair price? And they said, that's right. And I don't even think I said goodbye. I just hung up the phone, immediately called the state, told them I'd made up my mind that I would like for them to sue me. And they were just floored. They didn't know what to say. They had supervisors calling me back. They said they couldn't pay what was a fair price. And obviously within 24 hours they had met the demand and paid the right price, because they knew if we went to court that a jury of my peers would say, that's not a fair price. And I learned something from that, that even when you're dealing with an issue like eminent domain where the state can take your land, there's still parameters, there's still certain requirements that they have to meet. And if I had not called my provider law firm, I would have done what everyone else did and just settled.
My son had received a recall from the automobile manufacturer, and we took it to the local dealership that was taking care of that recall. My son was on my membership at the time, and we thought that everything was just fine. And later on, he received a phone call telling him that he would not be able to pick up his car because the manufacturer had not paid the dealership. We had called their law firm. They called us back, and they basically asked us a couple questions. One of them was, before you left, did you get a pre-authorization code? We did not know how important that question was going to be. They basically shared that as long as Dustin had that code, everything would be fine to continue to the dealership. So we walked in the dealership, and they were quite pleasant, but at the same time they shared, well, didn't you get our message? You're not going to be able to take your car unless you would be willing to pay for the service up front. And when Dustin had shared with them that he had actually talked to the law firm and that had actually secured the pre-authorization code, that literally at that point it was between the dealership and the manufacturer. When the desk clerk shared that with the manager of the dealership, he said, bring him his keys.
Had a situation with a brand new Cadillac. I hit a pothole, did over $1,000 worth of damage to the front of my car. I filed a claim against the city of Raleigh myself, done nothing. I said, let me check this prepaid legal service out. I called my attorney. They made one phone calls to the insurance company for the city of Raleigh. I got a check for $1,933.20. I was hooked.
I have twin daughters. They do no wrong. And behind my wife's back, I took my twins to have their hair straightened. The hair salon did straighten the hair. And the twins were happy, and I bought them a new wardrobe and the whole thing. And about 2 weeks later on our vacation, their hair started falling out about as big as softballs. By using the membership, what I found out is that I had no rights when I took them to the hair salon. In other words, I didn't know that there were repercussions from chemicals and whatnot that the ladies go through. And the long story short, because of Title I, which really should be Life Event 1, through some phone calls and a letter from the law firm, we were able to settle that case, if you will, without having to retain a law firm. Thanks to Prepaid Legal, though, the money that we settled has now gone into their college fund.
I used the membership, matter of fact, refinancing my home. Matter of fact, they got all the numbers together, and I looked at the gentleman. I said, well, before I sign this document, I don't understand all the numbers. I said, so I'm going to have my attorney review it. And at the time, he was calling me Sidney, but when I made that statement, my name went from Sidney to Mr. Adams. And I said, oh, that's power. And he asked me, he said, well, why you want to do that? And I said, because I can. Before they allowed me to send that document over to Prepaid Legal, they had to resend me 3 different documents. And finally, when the attorney law firm received it, they saved me over $10,000 on my refinancing. Now, that's what you call a great membership.